be forgiven for being a bit taken aback by this week's episode title. I have, of course, performed some classic journalistic clickbaiting. We at Lloyd's List are very passionate about diversity in shipping. Sorry to disappoint. But after spending some time in sunny Cyprus to celebrate Wista's 50th birthday, I did ask myself the same question. Why is gender equality still a topic of conversation? We don't debate the usefulness of lifeboats anymore. We don't debate the necessity of fire extinguishers. The concept of diverse representation at all levels of shipping should be equally as universal, and any discussion about it equally as absurd. But shipping does have a problem. Female representation in boardrooms is a societal problem, of course, but shipping is lagging behind even those modest numbers. The statistics are damning, wherever you get them from, but the accepted number is that 15% of executive leadership roles are occupied by women, and just 2% of seafarers are female. What we're not going to do today is take 20 minutes out of your day to tell you how important diversity is. That's not up for discussion anymore. But what is up for discussion is shipping's record on the matter. Progress has undoubtedly been made, but it is slow and the going is heavy. And the exhaustion and frustration could be heard in many of the women's voices at the conference, even if their words reflected continued optimism. So why is shipping failing, and what actions can be taken now to right course? I started by asking Elpi Petraki, president of Wista International, why shipping was lagging so far behind.
I think it's a bit complicated. Why? It's many factors. It is, are women given the same chances as men? Are the environments created around them? And I'm talking just for land-based jobs now. Is the environment enabling them to go forward, to participate? I mean, we know that women are not always being given the chances to go to conferences as often as their men colleagues. Or they are shy of speaking up and requesting things. It's a combination of things. They definitely have the education. We have the same education. But I think it's the biases in our societies that make it more difficult. And I think it's not only something that is common in the maritime industry, but in many other industries as well. Apart from some very specific trade where women are very dominant in the environment.
We are behind.
That, of course, is Arsenio Dominguez, Secretary General of the IMO, who explained just how deep the inequality goes, right down to the design of ships.
And it's providing those platforms, those opportunities. And it's the changes that we have to make, even, for example, in the way that we operate ships, the way that they are designed from the very beginning, that there's more space that is required. Even the mandatory regulations that we have in the organization when it comes to PPE. The type of equipment that people need to wear in order to be safe. We have started already to look into what the reality is for women on board and not to design this with only men in our heads. And those kind of changes are the ones that within the regular process will help, but it's also what we do at the management level. And I started 1st of January, the first opportunity that I had to introduce a balanced senior management was from the very beginning, and I have a 50-50 approach when it comes to directors at the organization and making improvements at all levels. But again, is when we put actions into the words that we continue to say and express.
But the inequality starts way earlier than the boardroom. Now podcast regular Guy Platten, Secretary General of the International Chamber of Shipping, thinks we have to start a lot earlier.
I think it's also a perception of the industry. I was very interested when I did some research of this when I was in a previous job and spoke to some young female cadets. And I said, well, what's the barrier for more coming in? And they said it actually starts a lot earlier because most people have to choose their options, even whatever country. But 13, 14, they have to sort of specialise a little bit. And quite often women tend to drop some of the STEM subjects, some of the science subjects, and they go down a different path. So, it's therefore these options are not so much open for them, when we get later on and they're making the career decisions. So I think we can do a lot more on that side of it to get to show the benefits of the industry much earlier in school children. There's some great examples actually in Cyprus. They've got a doctorship program here where they have primary schools adopting a ship. So we need to get the message out there a lot earlier to people that this is actually a viable career.
Do you remember those depressing numbers at the start of the episode? Well, good, because here's some more. In a 2022 Wista survey, a quarter of female respondents said sexual harassment on board ships was common. In a 2020 Safer Waves survey of men and women, nearly 25% said they'd experienced sexual assault and 8.4% rape. Another huge failure for shipping. What are we doing about it?
I have to say I'm proud that we are finally talking about it. And again, it's something that is happening in societies around us. And we now have the freedom of raising up these cases, not only in shipping, in our everyday lives as well. What I always say is, yes, we need women at sea, because we need same chances for everybody. But first, we have to create a safe environment for them.
We recognize that it's a problem, and we already have taken steps. We have adopted this year regulations to address harassment, including sexual harassment on ships. We also developing guidance together with the International Labour Organization, collaboration with all the stakeholders, including the International Transport Federation, on a tripartite working group to continue to enhance these regulations and these practices.
Whether it's a barrier to entry, it's certainly a barrier to whether they actually stay in the industry, I think, is the bottom is absolutely abhorrent. I've heard the stories as well, and they're just, and a lot of that is down to, the behaviour is unacceptable, but we need to actually educate our crews as well. I mean, it's all very well having these policies ashore, but you actually need to change the culture on board ships, and that takes time to do. It's very traditional, and we need to get diversity champions aboard the ship. We need to get people to understand. And where you see it working really well, where you see the senior officers on board a ship really engaging in it, there's no problems. It's about training and educating our existing workforce and hopefully changing perceptions. And that will, and also making sure that, I think if something does happen on board the ship, there's investigated quickly and sanctions are applied very quickly to individuals concerned. And that way they know that if they shout out, if they say, if they bring up, it will be treated seriously. That's really important.
The scale of the problem is hopefully clear now, if it wasn't already. We've been talking about the need for greater representation among shipping decision makers for some time now, but what actions can we take today that will change things? The Secretary General did one thing inside his first few months in charge.
At IMO, we have had for over 30 years a program just specifically designed for women in maritime. We have introduced a diversity award that we commemorate on its designation together with the International Day of Women in Maritime. And have gone beyond and have introduced a policy at IMO where we don't participate in external or internal events in panels unless there's female representation. The reason why it's because we need to provide the platform for women at all levels, but in particular at higher levels, in order to be part of this industry.
Not speaking on all male panels is a simple but effective choice. Lloyd's List has the exact same policy, but many women feel that to be taken seriously as thought leaders, they can't just appear on diversity-focused sessions. That's why Wista's conferences don't spend much time on the subject, Elpi explained.
Our conferences as Wista, our international conferences, are always thematic. We don't talk about diversity. We are just very lucky to have a pool of professionals that we can pick from, and they are women, some men as well. As you can see, we have mixed panels always, and they talk about matters that matter to the industry, not about diversity. This is not why we are here. We are here to show to everybody that there are women professionals, and also to show to the women that they can do it. And I think we're successful at that. We just want to talk about matters that matters to everybody in the industry, not only diversity. Diversity, I think there is, and I'm a bit reluctant sometimes, I will tell you that, when they ask me to join a panel on diversity. And I'm a professional. I have a lot to say about my what I do for work, for my business, and I've been doing this for 25 years. So I'm sure that through asking women to speak, not on diversity panels, but on expert panels, that is a diversity. To have a panel of 4 women, 5 women talking on diversity is not a diversity.
Policies and rules, such as the IMO's and even our own, are helpful. They shine a light on non-compliance and ultimately force representation to increase. So why not just mandate across the board? Why can't flag states demand that X number of board members must be female to fly their flag? Well, one of the no doubt several reasons why that wouldn't work is the T word.
All these things can be mandated. What we don't want, and this is something that I highlight, and I want to be very specific, is not just to play tokenism. Because if we play just by the numbers, and then we don't have the right people in the right place, it may be detrimental in the longer term. So I do support introducing those kind of approaches because they give us a goal and they give us a target. But we need to keep competency first. And there's no question that women are asked, if not more competent than men. But it's when we take the actions that we don't just play by the numbers. So I would call, and I think that there will be an opportunity, I'm convinced that there are opportunities for flag state, port state, coastal state to introduce practices that will easily enhance the participation and the inclusion of women in the sector. And if introducing targets will allow us and will help us to get there, that's fine. But we need to keep those targets on the review and always keep an eye that we don't lose the focus, and it's the full integration by the fact that we all deserve the same opportunities.
I'm a little bit old-fashioned. I don't believe in quotas. I believe you change the culture to enable people to get up. There has to be no barriers. There has to be no glass ceiling. But I'm very much for the right person for the job. My wife's a CEO in health and social care, and she would have, I know she's got strong feelings on this one, is people want to get there because they're the best to get that job. So we have to create the environment where people can thrive, and they know that if they're ambitious, they've got the talent, they will get there.
Sometimes, Elpi explained, even with the best will in the world, targets can backfire on those they were designed to lift up, especially if the spokespeople are not the best candidate for the job.
I think that we have to make sure that we have the best people out there. And being a man or a woman does not justify the knowledge you have. You have to have the knowledge behind it and to back it up. I'm afraid that this can also work against women sometimes. Because if we just need to have a percentage to prove that we have 30, 40% of women in somewhere, in a panel, in a board or anything, but we are not sure that they are the best, this can backfire on women because we need the best. And this is why I insist we don't emphasize of the fact that we are women, professional.
There is an elephant in the room here. It's me. I'm a man. I'm a male voice talking about underrepresentation in shipping. And believe me, the irony is not lost on me. But this is a problem for everyone, no matter their gender. Aside from being just the right thing to do, diverse teams make better decisions. They bring different perspectives and experiences, as Guy explained.
Well, I can just talk about my own team at the ICS. We're, I think, over 50% women now. I think we're certainly 50%. We have women in senior positions. We do this thing called Great Place to Work, which is, every year to test how we do it. And we're actually now in the top 50 places for women to work in the UK. Wow. So, because I see that because we all come with different skills and we get, risk appetite and all the soft skills, I think coming together, good decisions are made. I see that firsthand. I'm terribly proud of my team and what we do, and the culture we've generated within the organisation. So I've seen firsthand that if you get a diverse team, it drives performance, productivity, and it also gives people a really good reason to come into work each day.
I think we generally need more women in decision-making positions. It is not fair. First of all, they can be very innovative. They can be, a lot of work has been done, and it has been working for so many years. But as you say, if we want to make a step further, if we want to change the direction we've been going, we need some different kind of thinking. It doesn't mean that a woman will provide that necessarily, but we will reach out to a pool of people with different ideas, and we can make selections of the ones who are able to give us that. So without putting any barriers, we will choose the best men, women, or whatever else, and have them on the table.
So, aside from refusing to participate in all male panels, which, while admirable, doesn't directly translate into more female shipping CEOs, what can the sector do right now to get some ground back?
We can invest more in people. We can start with education and focusing on empowering women by immediately providing them the means of education. And we'll call on anyone that can provide scholarships. As the president of the Republic of Cyprus mentioned this morning, they're allocating scholarships to the IMO training institutions for female students from Cyprus. We continue to focus on reaching 50% of scholarships taken by women to both IMO training institutions. And it's that empowerment that companies can also take, building on the platforms for women to have a voice, because boardroom can be intimidating if 95% are men. But it's that support that we can provide, that encouragement, and sometimes even put ourselves aside. And it's not always has to be a man of the CEO, the one that is representing a company. There could be the deputy, and that deputy could be a woman. And the more that we provide those opportunities, the more visibility, the more that others will follow suit.
Try to find the women out there that can give you an input on matters that do matter for you, or Lloyd's list on your articles that are women. I'm going through newspapers all the time, and if you see them, most of the people out there are men. Make the effort to find the right women. You will see here today, we have so many women on the panel as experts. We know them, but that's why we have the Maritime Speakers Bureau with the IMO. To find these right people, you need to make a bit more effort. And I think this goes back to the industry and to the companies. The companies have to make that effort. But if journalists start asking for the right people within, not to be always men, to find the right woman in the company too, and maybe educate her a bit, to be able to feel confident and showcase what she knows, this will make a change.
Wista was founded over lunch in a London pub by a handful of pioneering female tanker brokers 50 years ago. They would surely have hoped that things would be easier for the women in shipping today than it was for them. Elpi said she was confident that it would be easier still for the women to come after her.
I'm very confident. I started 25 years back, and I was very often the only woman in a big room. Sometimes I still am, but I see so many women that have succeeded. And I'm sure the next generation will do much better, because the younger also generation has different mindset. And if we don't destroy their mindset and make them like us or the ones before us, I think there will be much improvement.
The fact that there's a lot more awareness on this, we are talking about it a lot more. Look at the difference of the first meeting of Wista, or when Wista was created, there were 3 women. Look at the representation of women right now at higher positions in the maritime sector. Again, continues to be low, but continues to rise. I mentioned earlier that at the United Nations General Assembly, there was a call for more action and less talk, because less than 10% of the speakers at the General Assembly were female. That demonstrates that this is a systemic problem everywhere. But it's the fact that, again, we can use social media, that there's a lot more communication and desire from everyone, as well as the acceptance that we haven't done enough and that we need to do more. And listening to the younger generations, what would actually continue to take us to the steps in order to achieve what is the goal for the United Nations on the Sustainable Development Goals, number 5, which is gender parity and equality for women and girls around the world by 2030.
To answer our own headline, yes, we are still talking about diversity, and that's because we still have to, and we will still have to in a year's time, and probably a year after that, and a year after that. So when we do have this conversation again, I asked Arsenio what he wants to have changed.
I would like to see more actions in relation to the commitments that everybody is making on all these events and these conferences. Because again, I'm going to say it, talk can be cheap. And the fact is that we've been talking for a long time. The improvements are there, but probably not at the speed that we could have gained if we all really are serious in the steps and the actions and the risks that we need to take. Because we all need to realize that sometimes we need to take some risks in order to achieve those goals. And that includes diversity. So that will be my call, actually, to start calling on people that when they come to the events and they present is, from what you said last year, what have you done to improve diversity and inclusion, and in particular gender parity within your company or your sector? We need fresh ideas. We need new minds thinking about how we can improve as a sector, how we can transform ourselves, how we can be better socially, economically, environmentally, and in a sustainable manner.
It's clear that everyone I spoke to in Cyprus, including the 3 people you've heard on this episode, are extremely passionate about gender equality in shipping. But the Wista annual conference is, of course, an echo chamber. Frankly, if you weren't serious about seeing more women in the boardroom, then you wouldn't be there. Talk, as we've found out over the past decade, is cheap, as the Secretary-General said, but actions, even as small as refusing to speak on an all-male panel, will hopefully start to change things. This episode will, hopefully, be redundant in 5 years' time, and the next generation of shipping will be as incredulous that we even discussed it as we are that once upon a time most vessels didn't have lifeboats. That's where we're going to leave it this week. Thank you so much to the Secretary-General of the IMO, Elpi and Guy for their fantastic contributions, and of course thank you to you for listening. We'll be back next week as normal, but if you can't wait till then, you can listen to every episode of the Lloyd's List podcast on SoundCloud, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.